Wait for it. Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans, one stabby chaos coordinator, and a chief shenanigator geeking out over our chaos. Geeking out over our science fiction and fantastical fantasies, a place where nerd is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, obviously you'll notice this topic we actually had scheduled Nick and Stabby were going to be here, but the Illuminati got involved because of the topic today. And they somehow made the co-captain of his boat get sick, so his leave was denied. And then I was trying to talk about this episode on the introduction, and then they just shot me in the head with that ray that made me forget my words. It was brutal. I'm telling you, they don't want this episode out. We're going to power through and record it anyway because we are brave individuals, dear listener. We do not care what the Illuminati thinks. We will talk and talk and talk. And with that, we are going to let our guests introduce themselves. And all of these people are recurring guests who've been here before. We've got the frequent flyer miles and the insanity to prove it, starting with Jana S Brown.
Who, me? What? I'm starting? That's weird. I'm Jana S Brown. I write plenty of speculative stuff under the pen name Jena Rey. Some of it has smoochies in it. Some of it just has, big splattery battles and all of the good stuff. I write other stuff under other pen names, but we're not talking about those today.
And writing with her is kind of like writing with your mom, where she's like, no, don't use those words. You can't cuss like that, JR. Jeez.
Mm-hmm. Know your audience, man.
And sometimes, because we'll do the video chat, she just gives you the look. Like the mom look.
I have the look.
That's cheating. True. That's cheating.
I raise children and grandchildren. I have the look.
Jarret, tell her it's cheating. You're a professor. You get this. This is actually intellectually cheating, right? To give the look. This has got to be like some sort of academic sin or something. I don't know.
Only cheating if I get caught or it doesn't work.
You've been around me too much. All right, Jarret, you want to introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers at home?
Uh-oh.
Did he freeze? Did the Illuminati break his screen?
That's my job.
There we go.
Jarret, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Jarret Keene. I'm a professor of English at UNLV, and I am the author of the dystopian adventure novel Hammer of the Dogs, as well as this collection of horror fiction called Gateways to Annihilation.
And if it weren't for those pesky kids, he'd have more books out. The ones he teaches, not the ones he created. I mean, but the pesky kids anyway.
They demand to be graded. I don't know. They demand to be evaluated. I don't know what to say about it.
Well, so this is being recorded in advance, dear listeners, so you can find out what day this is aired by the news I'm about to break. There was recently an error where some guy at the VA messed up where instead of denying 80% of VA disability claims automatically, he approved them instead. And so maybe instead of grading them all, you could just automatically be like pass and just move on. And then you have more time to write.
Yeah.
Something to consider.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it might not feel so great, but you would have more time to write stories.
Grade hyperinflation.
There you go. One heck of an economy. All right, Melissa, do you want to introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers at home?
Of course I do. I'm Melissa McShane. I am the author of many fantasy novels of various types, including contemporary fantasy and historical fantasy. And I am excited to be here. I'm actually in the United States this time instead of where I live in India. So I get to be here on a nice, quiet evening and enjoying this podcast.
Hold on. Let's do this. Let's see. No, let's not do it that way. How do I do this? How do I make somebody solo stage? It doesn't work anymore. I used to be able to do that. I was going to do like a close-up of her bookshelf because now it's not a screen.
Yeah, well, it is still a screen because I'm not at the house, but that is my library there.
Oh, I was excited. Thought you were in there for real this time.
No, I'm doing this from the office instead. I'm not up at my house.
Man, you broke my heart.
I'm sorry.
I need a moment. I thought it was really your office this time.
No, it's not.
No, she deceived you.
Mm-hmm.
You did. Terry, you would never deceive us, though.
I don't know. I have a fake bookshelf too, but I made no secret of that.
You want to introduce yourself?
Hello once again, everybody. Teri K. Jobe, audiobook narrator, fledgling author of several short stories, and who knows, maybe something longer in the future.
I have heard rumors that you are writing those longer words.
Yes.
Does it hurt more when you drag them out, the longer ones?
Only
Ow.
if I go into the dictionary and find those like $5 words, those hurt a little bit.
Yeah, because when you pull them out your head, sometimes it's a little painful. I get it.
A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever confuse yourself? Because you're the only one I know that's an author and a narrator that isn't narrating their own stuff. So do you ever get like the vibe mix up from your own work to what you're narrating for someone else? Do they ever clash and cause you issues?
Usually not. Usually within the first chapter or two, once I've established, okay, these are the voices, this is the world, then it's like, this is the world I'm in. And I just live there for a while, which is why it can be difficult doing multiple projects at once, because then that gets weird. If I'm doing an urban fantasy over here and a regular fantasy over there, I'm like, wait, whoa, don't cross the streams.
Sometime in October, they started releasing some of the filmed panels from Dragon Con this year, from 2025, if you're listening later. And that was one of the things. They interviewed Amanda Threet. She's a voice actor. And that was one of her complaints, is that actors will give her a long-running series and the bit part character in book 1, so she gives the ridiculous voice, and it turns out it's like the main bad guy in book 5, and now she's got to continue that voice for like the whole book. She's like, if you're going to do that, can you warn me?
I will admit to one time in a urban fantasy, I was actually voicing a demon and broke a rule that you're not supposed to do in narration, is do an unsustainable voice. And I was very clear, hey, does this person reappear? Because I won't do it if they reappear.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
But apparently he doesn't, so I did a fun, illegal voice.
Yeah, I was just thinking some of the ones that I've heard in books, and I'm just like, yeah, I hope this guy dies quick, because I don't imagine they could maintain that. All right, and because this is a panel on demons and devils, oh my, today's religion question is, what is your favorite portrayal of a demon or devil in fiction? We're going to start with you, Jana.
So I really liked Lucifer in Supernatural, because we went through that whole thing where he started out so normal, and then it got really unnormal really, really fast. So that was one of my favorite ones. I'll leave it at that, because we have lots to talk about later.
All right, Jarret.
I don't know. Does the crow count as a demon or as a demonic
Oh, that's a good question.
character?
Was he a demon or was he a ghost?
I always thought he was more ghost than demon, or a avenging ghost, possibly.
Or spirit? Yeah, I didn't get demon from him when I watched it, but I don't know. I could be. You know what? We ought to do, and I'm going to write that down. We're going to do a Crow movie review now.
Oh, that'll be fun.
I'm adding that to the list.
Can I suggest one more? Maybe is Hellboy? Or I don't want to take somebody else's. Never mind. I'll be quiet.
All right, Melissa.
Well, you were going to take mine because Hellboy is my choice.
Oh, sorry.
Hellboy is. I am a Hellboy fan from way back, and I love it all, except for the most recent movies. Those were not good. But no. But yeah, Hellboy, my favorite portrayal of a demon in fiction, definitely.
All right, what about you, Teri?
I'm gonna have to go with Crowley from Good Omens. Especially, he's good in the book, but especially the way that the actor David Tennant pulls him off in the show. Mwah. Chef's kiss.
We were recently at FanX in Utah, and it might be not so recently, depending on when this actually ends up airing, but in September, and the number of Good Omens cosplays that we saw was immense and amazing.
And they were always in
did
pairs.
A really good job, and it was always in pairs. It was always the two of them walking around.
It was
You
never
never
just
saw
one.
one without the other, and it was so much fun to see those as cosplays.
That's awesome.
If I was going to do a cosplay, I like the ones that portray the corpse, and they'll run around all the Batmans and just drop on the ground and play their parents.
Yes.
Rude.
Yes.
Totally rude.
You could do that to Spider-Man too if you want to be the uncle.
Totally rude.
That's
You're
like a
bad
twofer.
man.
I am.
I don't think you're allowed to come to FanX.
Maybe that's why I don't go. I'm probably bad for people's mental health. So if I was going to pick one, I really liked the devil in the movie Little Nicky, the scene where he's got the pineapple and Hitler. You can guess where the pineapple goes. It's a comedic bit about what hell looks like. The whole movie's like kind of humorous, tongue in cheek. I'm just saying some of those jokes are not kid friendly if you decide to watch it and you haven't yet. All right, so because we are the Blasters and Blaze podcast, we are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. We try to be civilized human beings here. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it, Jana?
Okay, just for the shock factor, it has turned fall and cold around here. So, along with my normal Diet Dr. Pepper, which I love very, very much, I'd like the Tivana passion fruit teas. I find that a really nice line, and you can mix it. Really good is mixed with either blueberry or with lemon, and it's very refreshing. It warms everything up, and it's a beautiful thing. And my husband, because he's amazing, gets me the chunk crystal dark. It's kind of it's not quite brown sugar, but it's these crystally dark sugar, and it is perfect. It mixes in well, and it is lovely. And that is the thing that I drink in the fall when it is cold in the morning. So I do drink things other than Diet Dr. Pepper, just, alongside, not instead of.
When I was, we haven't talked about this on the air, but I'm going to air it now just because it's funny. When we was at the gym the other day, a lady had a "Make Snake Oil Salesman Great Again" shirt, and it was signed Dr. Pepper.
It's what the doctor ordered, man.
So, although if we're going to go there, I also want the Coke back in Coca-Cola. So, because why not?
Yeah, well.
One of the things that's cool if you add it to hot teas, and I would not recommend traveling through airports with this. The TSA will not like you, but German rock sugar, it looks like other kinds of substances.
Yeah.
But it is delicious, and it melts really, really quickly. It doesn't need as hot of a water to melt, so you could sometimes add it to lukewarm teas. Because one of the things, if you add, like when they bring you iced tea and they give you sugar, like that's just going to granulate at the bottom of the cup. It's not really mixing. Why are you teasing me? You got to add that sugar because chemistry, right? You got to add the sugar while the tea is still hot and then chill it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the German rock sugar has a lower, like the heat it requires to melt is in bond is lower. Plus, it's extra sweet, so it's really, really good, and you can eat it like candy. Not that I've done that. I'm just saying. That's really good in tea too. You might want to see if you can get some of that. But again, it looks like other substances, so I'm just saying maybe not through the airport.
To Amazon to the rescue, man.
Amazon to the rescue. All right, what about you, Jared?
I've moved on from sugar-free peanut butter cup syrup to birthday cake sugar-free syrup in my coffee in the morning, and I feel very,
very festive.
Yes, I feel festive. Every day's my birthday with the syrup.
Does it actually taste like birthday cake?
Yeah. It's amazing. Oh, well, like the frosting, on the birthday, the white frosting.
I guess it really depends on what kind of birthday cake people got. All right. What about you, Melissa?
Well, I am still drinking Coca-Cola, reluctantly drinking the American kind instead of the nice sugared kind that you get in India. Also, I'm used to the smaller servings now. Indian Coke, they've got like 250 milliliter bottles and 330 milliliter cans and the giant 740 milliliter bottles that I share with my husband because it's more Coca-Cola than I want in one sitting. And so I've got this 20-ounce bottle now, and I'm looking at it and thinking, I'm kind of done. So... but it's still Coca-Cola for me.
All right. What about you, Teri?
Well, drifting a bit from the sugar-free, healthy options, as it's getting cooler, I have discovered, thanks to my husband's penchant for cooking, that a mug of hot chocolate with a little bit of heavy whipping cream is divine.
Oh, that's a lovely thing.
Oh, yes.
I have friends that we harass each other with reels and memes in our messengers. And they sent me one apparently in Idaho, or was it Iowa? I can't remember. That's one of the things they do. They add heavy whipping cream to Cokes, and they drink that as a drink. And they say it actually tastes good. It looks like it's rancid to me, but I mean, they're saying it works. So I guess heavy whipping cream goes with a lot of things.
Well, they do that in a dirty Diet Coke out here,
Mhm.
and even dirty Dr. Peppers are supposed to be the soda
Cream.
and heavy cream and coconut and lime is the combination. I like it without the cream. I think the cream blunts the flavor too much. But if you ask for a dirty soda out here, you will get the cream in it unless you tell them not to.
Okay. It's an interesting combination I would have never put together. And if you're going to add milk to Coke, I would have expected it from like the dairy belt, not from, corn-fed areas.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, everyone's got to have a hobby, right?
Sure.
For me, it is, we're obviously filming this in advance because we don't know when episode 666 is going to air. So we want to be ready. And so for me, it's October. So I have to have my basic white girl pumpkin spice latte. I don't know how many I'll give myself this season because, well, calories are a thing and I am now dieting. And so if I sound extra bitter, well, I'm dieting. So I'm limiting myself. It has working. I'm down another half an inch at the waist. I can't see it on my face yet, but my pants don't stay up. I had the issue where my pants almost fell at the gym, and I'm like, okay, got to buy a smaller pair of sweatpants because that would be embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, drawstrings are a thing. So
Good problem to have.
it is, but it gets a little expensive. It does.
Yeah.
So, all right, with that out of the way, I do not want to get interrupted when we get talking on this topic. So I'm going to air the commercial a little bit early, dear listener, dear viewer at home. And then we're going to dive in, talking about demons and devils. Oh my, but first, the commercial.
The government underestimated the outbreak. The best medicines couldn't stop it. Now, the dead are walking the streets, and they're hungry. Zombie Patient Zero is 9 tales of flesh-ripping, brain-splattering mayhem from Bayonet Books, the boldest name in action and horror anthologies. From deep space to luxury resorts, nowhere is safe. Zip up your hazmat suit and dare to find out how it all went wrong. Zombie Patient Zero, from the deranged minds that brought you Contact This and Storming Area 51. Pick up your copy today in paperback or Kindle.
All righty, thank you for sticking with us through that early commercial interlude. And with that, let's dive into the demons and devils. Oh my. So obviously, with an episode like 666, we had to pick an appropriate topic for that milestone for our podcast. But we are aware of who our listeners are, so we don't want to go so far as to do something that might denigrate people's religious convictions, because we don't cotton to that. So with that, we're going to take a more academic and humorous take on it. So first, we've talked about our favorite portrayal of demons and devils in fiction. But what is it that makes it such an iconic villain? Is it just because it's part of the Western Christian ethos, or do you think it's more than that? Because demons and devils exist outside of Christianity when it comes to fiction and legends and lore. It is not just the religious West.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in Dungeons and Dragons, they're extraplanar creatures, so they don't live here. They belong on another plane, and they come here for various reasons. Very often because they were summoned by somebody, and one of the hooks that you learn fairly early is that they don't like the person who summoned them any more than they like you. And so if you can turn them on their summoner, it's a really good way to get through the story, because it's a case of they don't like him either. And so they're extraplanar creatures. They're interesting because they're very, very different. They're very alien, but used, very often in fantasy stories because they have that alien look to them. they have the background with stories and lore, but then you can bring them in as an extra planar character. So that's the way we see them a lot in fantasy, is that they live somewhere else, and then there's a crossover either because of summoning or because they're coming into our world for a reason, or some of that kind of stuff. So that can be interesting to play with, to say they're from somebody else, they don't somebody somewhere else, and they don't belong here.
So let's stick with that for a second. So when they get summoned here, is it the person that summons them that ties them here? Is it the location? Because Supernatural had the Crossroads demons, for instance. Is it the location? Is it the person? Is it the ceremony? What is it that gets them here, and then what is it that keeps them here?
Well, depending on the meme you're looking at, it's trying to make a new kind of soup in the kitchen.
or reading the IKEA directions.
Maybe
yes.
Maybe it takes a little of everything. You have to be the right person who knows the right words at the right place. I love the idea of the Crossroads demon, by the way. I mean, that's one of my favorite story types, is this idea that you go to this place and you're selling your soul, and that it has to happen at a certain place at a certain time. Makes it a little more, I don't know. I hesitate to say special, because that sounds like, Hallmark movie summoning demons thing, and maybe that's not where we want to go. But it's more like acknowledging that you're doing something big. You're doing something with power, with something behind it that you couldn't just do. Because much as I like the idea of you're mixing up soup in your kitchen and you get the ingredients wrong and the demon appears, I do like the idea that it's a place, it's a location, that something happens there and it's unique, it's different. You don't get the same thing that you would elsewhere. And I'd like to see that played with in fiction a lot more, where maybe the kind of demon you summon is based on where you are and what you're doing. We know what kind of demon comes to the Crossroads, but what about what kind of demon comes to IKEA? And from there,
a Swedish one.
Mm-hmm.
One of the memes, of course, because Teri loves her memes as much as I do, is that's why the Latin mass stopped, because they accidentally summoned a few demons.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So do you think then that when you see those bargains between the demons and the people that make them, like at the Crossroads, do you think those always have to be permanent, or can you get the Faustian bargains where they manage to undo it somehow at the end?
I imagine it would probably depend on the cleverness / experience of the demon. If they're of a newer existence, they may not have the knowledge to word things a certain way so that they're ambiguous, or that might be their problem, that they're not being specific enough.
And what about when the devil went down to Georgia? I mean, you got that. That's a fantastic story and song. I love that one. Mm-hmm. And the idea that you're bargaining with the devil, but in that case, the human wins decidedly. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's
Johnny is just better.
He doesn't even have to get out of the bargain. I like the idea of playing. It's kind of like the playing chess with death, only you're playing with the demon and he wins. So I kind of like that idea, that the devil has to live by his own rules, and if you can thwart those rules, then you can succeed. Mm-hmm.
The trick seems to be about like containment and control.
Yeah,
that seems to be everything when you're wagering with a demon or a devil. They can be slippery, capricious, and you have to be careful.
Yeah,
and that's what makes it interesting, because you don't really know they're aliens. Their morality is eerie and unpredictable, and they might have secondary or tertiary motives for everything that they do when you summon them and they help you.
Mm-hmm. That is why the trope on a lot of the CW type shows is the demons also happen to also be lawyers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a functional difference between a demon and a devil?
Okay, I was going to look that up and I totally forgot. So if somebody knows, I know that there's a difference between them in Dungeons and Dragons. I am not sure that difference extends to other genres. So All I know for sure is that the devils are the legalistic ones. Those are the ones that want to tie you up in red tape. So,
I always
anybody
thought the
else?
demons was like a demon was like an agent of chaos or something, whereas
So
a
Yeah.
I
devil's more
asked
like a leader.
I
Yeah.
asked Rock, the differences stem from their origins, roles, and connotations in religious, cultural, and literary traditions. Demon is typically a malevolent supernatural being or spirit, often associated with evil, chaos, or temptation,
There you
are
go.
generally considered lesser entities compared to a singular devil. So they're almost like a subspecies to the devil, whereas
Mhm.
devil is the singular evil.
And
Okay.
sometimes fallen angels and other fallen spirits get looped in with the whole they become demons because they fell. In a lot of the Chinese dramas that I watch, I have become a big fan of the fantasy Chinese dramas. It's what I watch when I can't fall asleep in the middle of the night. And my husband's over there laughing at me because he's like, "You're watching these things and you can't even understand them." It's like, that's what subtitles are for, man.
That's right.
And I can turn the volume all the way off, and I can sit there with my phone and I can read the subtitles and watch the people in really, really pretty outfits.
Mhm.
But they have a lot of that demons can be various spirit types, but when they fall to a devil, when they go to that stage, once they become a devil, they can't come back. That's where they become something you have to fight. They become something that you have to bring them back. In the one that I was watching, it had to be purified by giving it a divine essence in order to bring something back that had fallen from just a demon spirit all the way to a devil, and that was different than immortals. So you do see this in a lot of different cultures, but a lot of times demons will also capture spirits, will also capture fallen angels. Sometimes the voodoo wa get confused with demons, and so you get different things that go on there, depending on whether they've been summoned by a bakor or a mambo. So there's a lot of things that kind of skirt the edges of those definitions.
Mhm. Yeah, I like K-pop demon hunters. Those were good demons.
Oh, it's
And
great.
yeah,
I need to
and the
watch
idea
that.
you need to
It's
watch that.
good.
I got to tell you, I was surprised. My daughter said, "You should watch this." And I said, "Okay, fine." And then we got my husband watching. At the end, we're going, "No, I'm not crying. You're crying." And it was really fun. But, speaking of demons going around, I mean, you have the main character there, the main evil character, who is basically a lost soul. And that has made him vulnerable to becoming a demon. And I mean, not to spoil the movie, but part of the plot hinges on what his fate is. Is this uh, a, a fate, a condition that he's trapped in forever, or is there a way out? And so I kind of like that story too, of just in general, of the idea of the demon who was once human and is maybe looking for a way out now.
Yeah, a redemption
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was to say,
is
I'm
very
always a
often it's a
sucker for a
redemption arc.
redemption arc, a second
yeah,
chance.
hmm
We so rarely get them in life, so I love to see them in fiction.
yeah. Mm.
Okay, so do you think, since you talked, Jana, about the ones you watched in the foreign dramas, do you think they are portrayed differently in those foreign dramas versus what we see in American literature and on American screens?
Yes, I mean, like I say, some of the devils that they deal with, they're beautiful. You don't get well, okay, I can't say universally. In the ones that I have watched, most of the devils and demons, especially when they're main characters, are they're beautiful and they're very, very powerful and they have reasons for what they're doing. They have people that they are subject to and different powers that are going on. And you have kind of the general um, cannon fodder demons, and those will be funny looking. But the ones that the stories are about tend to be attractive and they tend to have a lot going on there. And I think very often, sometimes not again, but very often the demons and devils that we deal with when we're talking about more Western fiction, that kind of thing, very often they're kind of grotesque. They might be wearing a mask that looks like it's something that's pleasant, but when that mask gets pulled away, there's often something bad underneath.
And
And
I
I
was
don't see
just
that as much.
sorry. I was just rereading Barry Hugart's The Story of the Stone, and he wrote fantasies of a China that never was, basically. But he used different Chinese folklore and history to be the basis for his novels. And the Story of the Stone, in part of it, they take a trip to hell, which is very similar to Dante's Inferno. And the demons there are they're widely varied. Some of them are very ugly, some of them are very beautiful, some of them are big, some of them are small. But the portrayal of demons in their folklore was still very different, even though it amounted to, I mean, I guess this was the first time I'd read the book and thought, oh yeah, this is like Inferno. But because they, have different levels of hell, and it's the same kind of thing. But the demons were functionally different than the demons we see in Western literature. I don't know how very different. I mean, he was much more informed about Chinese folklore and mythology than I ever will be, but I think that amounts to just the difference. I mean, you can't take it for granted. You say demon, and not everybody's going to know what you mean, because there's so many different portrayals.
Right. And the word demon actually, I'm hearing the echo too, Jenna. The word demon actually is a translation from Greek, which existed predating Christianity. So they had concepts as well. Although that was more like, I would think, more malevolent ghosts than what we would think of as true devils, based on the definition I read. But again, I am not an expert on Greek mythology. So, I mean, I read Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson, so I guess that makes me as qualified as anyone else. But I'm not an expert, but it is fun to see other portrayals flitting or used in settings, because it just breaks the norm up, and it allows you to have that sense of wonder again. Because when you see the same thing over and over again, you're like, okay, well, I know he's going to go because I know what this legend is, this lore is, whatever. When they use other people's or other nations, other cultures that you're not as familiar with, you get that sense of wonder again, because you're experiencing something new. So I like to see that. So it is interesting. I'll have to check that book out that you're talking about with the Chinese one.
Barry Hugart wrote 3 books. He was screwed by his publisher. He stopped writing, and it is a crime against humanity that he did that. So I can totally recommend his 3 Chinese mystery fantasies. Very good.
But I love all things historic anyway, so I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. So do you think when you read demons and devils in fiction or watch it on the screen, do you like the ties to the historic, or do you like them to be divorced from the legends and myth and have them sort of stand alone?
If it's a lore, go ahead.
I was thinking more along the lines in like a paranormal urban fantasy setting.
If it's a lore I'm familiar with, it's kind of cool to see that, oh, hey, they did that, and they turned it around this way. I like that, or I don't like that for whatever reason. But, for things that I'm not as familiar with, I'm sure there's plenty of references and nuance that just go over my head because I'm not familiar. But when it is there, it's cool to see.
Okay. Anyone else?
Looking up the name.
I'm thinking about it. I was actually thinking when we were preparing for this that okay, where is that echo coming from? I'm trying to just let me see if it's me.
It wasn't. You muted already.
Okay. Anyway, when I was preparing for this, I was thinking about when I was a teen reading Grimm's fairy tales, and the ones we are familiar with, everybody knows. What most people don't realize is that some of the fairy tales they collected were literally about the devil. They were warning stories about, if you do this, the devil will get you. And so I had a huge collection of Grimm fairy tales. And they were, all the ones toward the end were pretty creepy and very, very much demons and devils, but it was the devil. And so I'm kind of glad to get away from that, because those were really more cautionary tales than fairy tales. They were like, we're going to scare you into obedience. and most of them were not memorable. They were very similar to each other. It was the same story repeated over and over again. It wasn't nearly as fun as, say, I don't know, Rapunzel or whatever else. I don't actually remember which ones are Grimm's fairy tales and which ones are not. But so I kind of like getting away from the tradition for that reason, because I see the tradition as being something that was not necessarily fantastical. It was more an artifact of a time when Christianity was used as a stick to beat you with far more than it is today, and so that's not as fun for me.
I understand that, but if you like things that are darker and scarier, I will say you already are breaking tradition if you leave the Disney version of the Grimm's fairy tale and you go back. I thought my German grandmother was always thought the greatest sin of Disney was that they got rid of the darkness that was the fairy tale.
Yeah.
She thought that those lessons were meant to teach you things. Like, you know, and there's value in that.
This was not so much dark and scary as it was just unpleasant, because there wasn't any fairy tale to it. It was just, here's the devil, he comes in, he messes around with people's lives, they either succeed or somebody gets punished. And it's just not as fun as, say, the stepmother is forced to wear red hot shoes and dance until she dies. I mean, that's dark and creepy, and I kind of like that. But the ones with the devil were not nearly as fun, because it was like they actually believed the devil could do this. And some of the other fairy stories, it was more like, we know we're making stuff up at this point. But the devil ones were just not as fun. So I like getting away from that for myself, for what I enjoy.
Well, you brought up paranormal, and in urban fantasy and paranormal romance, we see the devil, devils in general, demons, the whole 9 yards. It shows up a lot because they are a major creature type. And so you see uses in all sorts of ways, and some of them are more fun than others. Some of them are really lean into the darkness and the bad things, and some of them really look to reimagine it. I've been watching a whole bunch of skits from a gal named Jacia. I'm going to forget her last name. Jacia Lynn, because it's an easy last name, so I'm going to forget it. And she just released a book called For Whom the Bell Tolls, and it's Belle, because the skits that she does are called Hell's Bells, Belles. No, I'm spelling wrong. Belles. Yeah, I did spell it right. But what she does there is she has a woman who dies, and he accidentally ends up in hell. She's supposed to end up in paradise. She actually ends up in hell. And she looks around and she goes, this place is phenomenally unorganized. And these poor demons are trying to deal with these souls who need to be told which level of hell they go to and what it is that we're supposed to be doing and all of that kind of stuff. And the demons are just, they're having the worst time. And she had worked in customer service in life. And so she set up the help desk, HELLP desk, and then hires these other cute little women, these other souls who have died, who have found their paradise, and then they come down and they work at the help desk to help all these souls get to where they're supposed to go and help the demons run hell. It is the cutest little thing, because they'll be there and a soul will come in and they're complaining about, why did I get sent to hell? And I was a good person and I did this, that, and the other. And they'll hold their file and they'll go, do you really want to go with that? So it's this combination of customer service and both terrible and not so terrible people showing up. And they have great things like a trapdoor. And so if you're really, really just getting on their nerves, they'll be, come here, a couple of steps closer, and whee, and it's like, yes, right to level 8. There you go. And she's envisioned things like, exactly. And level 1 is the therapy level. It's where you go when you've only been sort of kind of bad, and you go and you work on therapy, and then you can go ahead and reincarnate and try again, or this and that. So she's really, she's created this whole new mythology around the way the hell works, and that demons are not made, they're born. So they're born there, they grow there, that's where they live, and so you have all this interaction. It has been absolutely adorable, and yet she's really built some really touching stories on souls who have been redeemed and who have gone through processes as they've worked with the help desk to go from the Karen that came down and was just absolutely awful, and through many, many episodes and through the book, she gets redeemed and she ends up, returning to a mortal life to try again, having learned all these things being in hell. And I find it delightful because it is touching on some of those classic things about hell, but then it's also saying, well, no, there's a lot of opportunity here in what does purgatory mean? What do second chances mean? Are all demons necessarily bad by nature? And hers isn't. He's really cute. He's like this warlord of hell, but yet he wants to date her and can't figure it out. And you just go, oh, that's so adorable. You big bad demon, you that cannot figure this out. So I think there's a lot of fun ways that people have taken a hold of this and just let it be what it is.
I could see that. I also see in romance where they turn what we would think of, to invert the tropes, what we would think of as bad guys suddenly become the love interests. So, Lucifer's just misunderstood and, he's going to be somebody's, I don't know, mate or whatever.
The Lucifer TV show went along those lines.
So you see some of that too. I'm not sure I'm necessarily a fan of that. I think there's value in having clear lines that good is good and bad is bad. I know life has got a lot of gray, but to understand the gray, to appreciate that, you have to know where the lines are. And I think we've muddied them so far in fiction that sometimes it does a disservice.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I mean, I know I said Hellboy is my favorite, and that's like one of the great examples of being something other than what you were born to be and challenging having been born evil and becoming something good. But I would kind of like to see demons who are evil. I think the idea of the demon who can be redeemed is really compelling. And so I think a lot of people have been playing with it to the point that now I'm ready to see demons being evil again, just as a counter to that.
And that's one of those things where, unfortunately, with literature, the pendulum tends to go where everybody goes with the wave. Yeah. And so you don't end up with the balance. As long as it's balanced, I think all of it works. When everybody's doing one way, I think it does a disservice in general. And so I guess if there were enough people on all sides approaching things, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But people go where the money is, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, because we all like to get paid. So.
Well, there's also the demon that's really, really evil, and then there's the anti-hero demon. I've seen that play out in storylines. Where like the anti-hero demon has to choose between helping out the good side or aligning with the devil in order to bring about some kind of revelations or something. But I think that's kind of fun, but maybe that's a little bit played out as well. I don't know what you think of that, but I do love Hellboy because he is an anti-hero, maybe in the same way that the Crow is an anti-hero and many of these other characters that we're talking about.
Yeah,
the Crow's a complicated one, though. It's hard to pigeonhole that one in any one place. I'm gonna need some time to think about that one.
Well, just the idea of a character being vengeful in a very hideous and unattractive way. You're kind of like shocked and taken aback by how vengeful they are, even though you might agree with their, I don't know, revenge mission. You're like horrified by the way they conduct it. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So when you see demons and devils in fiction, do you prefer them to be, and obviously these are all of our preferences to your listeners, so join the discussion in the comments, but do you prefer them to be the main characters or the antagonist or the protagonist? Do you have a preference?
I just prefer that they do something interesting and maybe a little different. I'm good with whatever. I'm not so attached to the demon. I mean, I love Hellboy, but I love the BPRD too. So I'm just as happy to see all these other people who are working with Hellboy and have their own stories. And sometimes Hellboy is not the main character, and I like that. I like how they all play off each other.
I think for me, it just really depends on the story. Like, what's the hook here? Whose story are we telling? And that kind of, I mean, obviously, if you're having a story about a demon, it's going to have the demon be the main character. But I think if I had to choose, like, what kind of story to read, it'd probably be like, the demon is main character adjacent. Like, they're very involved, but theirs isn't the story we're necessarily following, or they're slightly more on the antagonistic side of things. So still very present, and they're there, and we get to learn about them and the creator's take on them. But I'm open to options.
Well, sometimes it provides interesting background. Ileana Rasputin from the X-Men was raised in a demon dimension, and that is part of where her power comes from, the way that she thinks, all of that kind of stuff. So even though we don't always stay in that dimension, she disappeared there for a while, and then she came back, and then she does stuff with the X-Men, that kind of thing. It is interesting because of the way that it colors her view of the world and the way that her powers work. We had someone who built a similar kind of background in a D&D game at one point, and she was a demonologist and was the party healer. But the way that she healed people was by summoning a demon to take over their body, because a demon won't take over a broken vessel. And so the whole thing was, can she summon the demon and then get rid of it right after it heals you, but before it takes you over? And you've never seen, and I wasn't playing in this game, I just heard about it later, but you had never seen characters who were so quick to go, it's just broken arm, I'm good, I'll wait until we get to the village and we'll get the healing potions, because if you get this wrong, I am stuck forever. And so the demons were not the main character, but it did affect the storytelling a lot to go, yeah, do you really want Eve to do this? Because the power she's drawing on is questionable at best, and if you get possessed, then we have to take care of getting you unpossessed, which may mean that you get just as beat up as you were before the demon took you over in the first place. So I do like that, those places where you have that crossover of, this demonic thing exists and maybe someone's drawing power from it. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? Can you use a power from an evil source for a good purpose when you're telling some of these stories? And so they're not main characters, but it's still really important.
And I was in that campaign. So I can tell you that further to that, I mean, everything to back up everything Jana said, what was interesting about this character is that her take on demons was not consistent within the universe. Like that whole campaign had to do with all different backgrounds, all different mythologies, and so it wasn't a typical D&D campaign. It was it was fantasy hero, but the idea that these demons could exist in a world that didn't have, say, Satan is another one of those things that I like people are dealing with now. My husband just read, no, my daughter was just reading a series where it was all about demons, but they weren't Christian demons. There was no Christianity involved in the entire series. And so I kind of like that the concept is, well, I guess that comes back to what I was saying about Grimm's fairy tales and the devil. I just, for whatever reason, I like the idea of making it something separate from something that exists in our world. That you don't have to deal with, you don't have to interact with Christianity to tell a story about demons. And I guess I have mixed feelings about that, but in general, I kind of like the idea that that demons can be something else, because then you don't have to get into, well, my religion is this and I believe this, but I really don't want to play a role-playing game or read a book that is dealing with things that I personally believe. Maybe having that distance is a little bit better. So anyway.
Any other thoughts before I ask the next posed question? So we did mention, and we're going to hit on the healing question that you mentioned, where the demonic possession. So when I think demons, I think fully formed bodies. You think the devil you see in art and literature. The thumbnail that I'm going to throw on this one when you look at this video, dear listener, But obviously, sometimes you have where demons are sort of, they don't have their own form. They take over yours. So do you have a preference, and do you see one more than the other? We'll go with you, Jarret, first. I know you're having to mute your mic when you're not speaking because technical issues.
No, I just wait. Okay, so what's the question?
Do you have a preference when the demons have their own body and you're coming in, you're seeing demons like you're expecting from myth and legend, or when they're taking over other bodies?
I'm not big on possession stories. I don't really enjoy them in fiction or movies, but except for the greatest horror movie of all time, The Exorcist. But I don't really uh I don't really see. I like to see demons in their own form and seeing them interact with humans. I think that's preferable, but that's just a personal preference. I don't know. Demonic possession is just a little too either cheesy, or in the case of that movie that I mentioned, very like, whoa, it's way too creepy.
It is a way to save on the costuming budget.
Yeah, that's always thought so. Like when you watch Star Trek or something, like you'll see alien possession as well, not just not demonic possession, alien possession. I never understood that. It just seemed like cheap special effect.
Okay. What about you, Teri? You look like you have some ideas.
I think I'm with Jarret on this one. I kind of prefer it when they have their own form. Although, on the other hand, as Jena was saying, in some of the fantasy Chinese dramas, the demon or devil god or whatever it is isn't fully formed, and that's the plot. They're trying to get into somebody, which is 85% or so of what's going on in the whole story. But I think I have a slight preference to or Western way of looking at it there, where they have their own form and have other machinations.
I think I kind of agree with that. I think, but for me, it's because if it has a body, I can kill it and I have a chance to survive. So there's that level of defense. Whereas if it can just take over your body, I think that's why like zombie apocalypse is when it could just take over anybody, right? Like that's what makes it so scary. Because how do you fight something you can't really see?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think the idea when you've got something tangible you can fight back against, there's that some level of comfort to it. But what about you, Jana, Melissa?
I'm waiting for Jana to talk. Jana's probably waiting for me to talk.
I was looking something up, so go ahead.
Oh,
well, I don't really have a preference, although I guess I am sort of more with Jarret. I really don't find possession stories interesting, unless it's Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin in All of Me. I guess that was fun.
Oh,
but
that was a fun one.
That was really fun. But that's not really demons. But yeah, I prefer the demons to have their own form, their own identity. I guess it's just if they have to affect our world by taking someone else over, that's kind of unsympathetic about the demon, because that's a pretty nasty thing to do. And so if you're going to tell stories where the demon is even a little bit sympathetic, then I think that kind of works against you. So maybe if it was a story where the demon was totally evil, then the possession thing would be more interesting to me.
That's also why a lot of people have trouble when the vampires are tried to be the good guys.
I don't like vampires as good guys.
Because they literally live by stealing life from others.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Unless you have, obviously, you got I don't take everything, so they still live. I just, whatever, but that's another discussion. But
and the sparkly ones.
And sparkly ones. That's another discussion, though, so we'll move on. Jana.
So the thing I was looking up to say, wanted to make sure I was remembering right. So Supernatural did the spirit demons that would possess people. And I remember Meg was one of them, where there was sympathy for the demon because this was their only option. It was their only way to have a voice, and their only way to have power in the mortal realm was that they needed a form. And that does go back to certain, again, religious traditions about fallen angels not having forms of their own. And so the only way that they could have bodies and that they could have power was by taking something over. So there is something that's kind of interesting there. And in that case, they had a demon knife and they had an exorcism. They had various things they could do to cast those demons out. And then that way you saw them as recurring characters and that kind of thing. So it is interesting. I can't say whether or not it's my favorite, but it is kind of an interesting thing. And they ask the question, when you take possession of this body, what happens to the person that's already there? And that is the question that comes up in a possession story is, are they still there and asleep? And when the demon's cast out, will they still be themselves, but now guilty of whatever the demon's done while they're riding around? Or does that push that other soul out? Or can they only take over a body on the point of death, which is one that I've read, where, they kind of wait around morgues and things like that. And I wish I could
Brain
remember
dead
the name
too.
of the book. Yeah. Well, I remember there was a book that I read where that was the thing, is that morgues were a place where there was a lot of demonic energy, because just as people really passed on, as they fully moved on, that was a point when possession could happen. So, I mean, you have to dig the possession stories in order to see where this goes. But it can be, I think, interesting either way. You've got to build the right kind of story around it, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've seen some where they've, I think if you're going to take a possession, if you're taking over someone who's functionally like brain dead, is just literally being sustained by life support, I think that could work as far as sympathetic. I know this isn't really demons, it was aliens again, but Stargate did that when the Goa'uld would take over the body.
Yeah.
They did talk about the host was in there and they were like silently screaming and about the constant battle between the Goa'uld entity and the host body to fight for dominance. And of course, obviously, almost all the time the alien won, but they did talk about that at times, about what that person suffered.
Mhm.
And then of course, even if they won and they expelled the Goa'uld symbiote and then, or it moved to a different body, they're still stuck with all the memories of the things they did, to include oftentimes eliminating people close to them.
Yeah.
So that is an interesting thing to consider. And then if you're looking at it in the context of a mortal world that tends to not believe that stuff, could they potentially be going to jail or suffering legal consequences for stuff that they had no control over?
That they didn't do. So there's interesting stories there. And again, part of it also says, if you view demons as only evil at all times, because that's the other thing is do we say the morality of a demon is by nature always evil, or do we get into spirits and other things where that may not be the case? And again, I think voodoo, because I write a police officer who has a war spirit that she's been possessed by, and it hangs around the back of her head, and she and it have come to a very interesting kind of balance, so that she's able to be a hunter and to fight these things. And we do see that kind of thing often with demons, devils, spirits, and other things that can possess somebody, is you see hunter characters and people that are in, chasing down other worse demons. So you do also get kind of that symbiotic, can both things exist in the same place towards a particular end. So there's interesting stories to be told, but you have to be consistent. And you have to know what do the nature of those things happen.
Now I'm picturing in my head like the A-Team story, but it was demons took over their bodies and now they're fleeing from justice.
Absolutely. Ta-da!
See, that more stories I want to write now. No, Joe, no, be good, JR. I've got too much to write right now.
That's right.
Finish what you're working on.
Right, because my publishers get really mad if I take on new projects. Is there anything? Obviously, we're speaking very broad brush here, and obviously, once this episode airs, we'll come back and we'll talk about other topics or narrow it down even more. And if you want the same guests on, I'm happy to pester them until they say yes. Jarret mentioned some demons in comics, so Jarret, do you want to weigh in real quick?
I was just thinking about like Ghost Rider as a demonic entity, anti-hero. I was thinking about Jack Kirby's The Demon from the 70s. There was a time in the 70s when everybody had like a demonic hero in comic books, and Marvel and DC were competing with characters like Son of Satan and and some of these comics like Night Force, which was very much inspired by The Exorcist and whatnot. But I just think that in comics it's very interesting because for so long comic books were censored, self-censored with the Comics Code Authority, and they were really trying to struggle through all of those limitations. And when they were finally set free, they just came bursting out. There was so much, you might say, demonic energy in comic books in the 70s and 80s. Magic, I think, too. Ileana
Yeah.
Rasputin was kind of Chris Claremont's attempt to, he felt pent up to a degree, and now he got to
Yeah.
write all that Exorcist related adjacent stuff.
It's
But I
also
don't
this.
know.
It's also 60s or 70s, so drugs were involved.
Yes, for sure, for sure.
Possibly. Well, and Doctor Strange, some of the places
Oh
Doctor
yes,
Strange
oh yes.
goes, they often don't specifically call it out as a demon realm, but you look at the pictures, you look at the art, and you go, oh yeah, it's Doctor Strange versus the demons. You may not call them that, but that's totally what it is.
Yeah, they called it like the astral plane or something,
Yeah.
or the the dimension, the door to other dimensions. But yeah, he was fighting essentially demonic
Yeah,
energies.
Dormammu and
hmm
Okay. Well, we are at the hour mark, dear listener, and we could keep going on and finding lots of examples and lots of topics, but we're going to try to keep these episodes to an hour because you don't have all day, and neither do we. So as we bring this to a close, if you have anything you want us to talk about, be sure to put it in the comment section. We'll do future episodes. We're absolutely all about that. If you want to come on the podcast and talk about a topic, you don't have to be an author. Not everyone who comes on is. This is the part where now I am culturally obligated, because we've made it a tradition here, to remind you, please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books, and it really does make a difference, even on things like comic books. And if there's nowhere to review it, start a website and review it yourself. And if you do it often enough, people will find you and give you free stuff just so you'll review that too. And if you're cheap and you're reading, I'm telling you, man, that's a grift. You could get free books. And then, you could open your own bookstore and turn around and sell them, and you double your money. Wait, that might not be ethical. I don't know. We'll debate that later. All right. With that, Jana, what are you? Well, I'd say what are we writing, but this is going to sit for a while. So, Jana, how can we find you on the Wild Wild interwebs?
Well, you can find me over at Linktree/Opal Kingdom Press. That's linktr.ee/Opal Kingdom Press. Or you can go right to opalkingdompress.com. That's where myself and my many personalities hang out. It's also where I occasionally have calls for anthologies. They're closed as of the moment that we're recording, but we'll see if I do anything else that starts the beginning of next year, where those might be open again. And I am really, really bad at hide and seek on the internet. So if you look for Jana S Brown or Jena Rey and connect it to authoring and books, you're going to find me sooner or later. And as for all those other pen names, well, that's a story for another time now, isn't it?
Indeed. All righty. Now, do you ever have your author personalities, all 12 of them? Do they ever have a conference call and you talk to yourself?
Oh yes, because I get the best advice from each of those different personalities. Sometimes
one of these days
they get really intrusive on occasion.
You should transcribe those, and then we'll get Teri to read them to us in all the accents.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that would be good. Well, occasionally the romance one has to come over and give us some instructions. So it's a party.
Challenge accepted.
There we go.
There was that one romance reader who wrote the book about basically the author talking to her characters, and her characters kept coming to her like, no, you can't do that. I'm not having relations with that man. I haven't bathed in 3 days. Do you know what infections look like? And it became a bit, and she did it all to the point where people were like, no, you got to write this book. So she did.
Oh yeah.
She wrote the book. And it is out there. I can't remember the lady's name. I know my mother told me about it because she watched the videos. That's how I heard about it. But yeah, that's the thing. Maybe you could do your own, where all of your author personalities talk to each other.
That could get really confusing, but also tremendously fun. I will take it under advisement.
There you go. All right. Jarret, where can listeners and viewers at home find you on the Wild Wild interwebs?
You can find me at jarretkeen.net or on Instagram and Facebook at author Jarret Keene.
All righty. It's a cool place to hang out, I promise. All right, next we have Melissa McShane, the war mistress herself.
You can find me at melissamcshanewrites.com or my storefront at nightharborpress.com, where you can order print books, ebooks, and some audiobooks. We're adding to the stock every day. And I'm on Twitter X as M McShane Writes, and I have a Facebook readers group. And if you're interested in learning when I'm releasing stuff, you can go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, which is published monthly.
All right, and finally we have the lovely lady of many voices, Miss Teri K. Jobe.
Oh, yes. I do have my Amazon author page, which is fledgling level. You can also find me on the Facebook when I'm not hiding under a rock or in the basement of the courthouse in my new job.
Wait, you hide in the courthouse? That sounds fun.
Yeah, I work in the basement. It's safe from tornadoes. I like it.
A couple years ago, I saw one town in Kansas where they were selling the old jail that you could convert into a house, and it even had the courthouse too was part of the deal because they had like an underground tunnel connecting them, and so you could turn the jail cell into your kid's bedroom.
Yeah.
And I just kept thinking,
that puts a whole new spin on gutting your room.
Yeah, right. Clink. Well, the other one that was really funny, and this is a little tangent, was I was driving through, going to Indiana to visit family, and we were driving through the interstate in West Virginia. One of the whole town was for sale, and literally the sign for the sale was "Buy a town, be your own mayor." That was the ad. I'm like, you'd also be your own sheriff, your own, all the other. If I had the money, I'd have done it just to say I was an elected official. Who elected you? I did.
Dog catcher.
Right? Like you do the dog catcher, the news port, like you do all of it. Like your resume would look so amazing. All right. And with that, dear listener, you can find us on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChute, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters. We've got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from Adam Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink those fine coffee brand coffee products, be it tea or hot chocolate. I have recently heard people call hot chocolate camp coffee. I don't know where that came from, but I heard someone use it, so I'm just going to steal that today. And if you want some of that hot chocolate from Coffee Brand Coffee, the link is in the show notes. Use the code PODCASTGRUNTS. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge your love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. All right, everyone. Thank you for coming on. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully, we didn't ramble too much and we stayed on topic-ish.
Close enough.
We're going to hit the end button. Don't cuss yet, Jarret. Wait for